Hey, Amber, we're going live any second now. Who do you want to do a shout out to?
I want to do a shout out to Caden.
Caden, best producer in the world. Here we go. Hey guys, today's guest is an empath empowerment mentor and emotional wellness expert. She works with highly sensitive empaths and helps them thrive in an all too often insensitive world. She's known as the Sensitive Badass. I love that. And her mission is to change the narrative in our culture around the world sensitive and to lead sensitive souls to a place of empowerment. Please welcome along with me, Amber Rochelle. How are you, Amber?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
I want to be a sensitive badass one of these days.
I think you already are.
Let's talk about sensitivity. That is something that people often see as a weakness. We're going to talk about that. I want to talk about what is sensitivity, and let's start with something super. Let's get some vocabulary down for everybody, and let's talk about terms. So let's start with the term neurodivergent. That's a good one to start with. What does that mean?
Yeah, so neurodivergent is basically just referring to people whose nervous systems process the world around them in a different way. So that is anybody on the autism spectrum, ADHD, ADD, and highly sensitive people as well, all fall within that neurodivergent category. And so it really is just that we see the world through a different lens.
Okay. And when you say you see it through a different lens, what is, I guess, I hate to use the word normal, but
I know.
what is the word what do most people see it through? And then what do people who are highly sensitive, how do they see it differently?
So people who are highly sensitive have our nervous systems react differently to what we call sensory data, which is basically anything you see, anything you smell, anything you touch. So all of our senses. And so we process things at a much deeper level. There is scientific research that highly sensitive people have more activation in what's called their mirror neurons. And mirror neurons are what give us a deeper level of empathy. And so highly sensitive people are naturally more empathetic, but we also are more sensitive to sound and lights and crowds, any kind of interaction with the world around us. We're just going to feel it at a deeper level than somebody who's not highly sensitive, for example. So that's where the normal comes in. I don't like that word either, but for lack of a better term.
Okay. All right. We'll pretend that it's just a different word. Okay. So what is an empath then in terms of how you deal with people who are highly sensitive and empaths?
Yes. So an empath is basically at its core somebody who can pick up on the feelings of others, who can feel the feelings of others around them and read the energy in a room, read people's energy. So very sensitive to those nuanced things. And so people who are highly sensitive are almost always empaths just because they have that further activation in their mirror neurons. Not every empath is necessarily highly sensitive. So I always sort of look at the highly sensitive term as a more scientific angle. There is a lot of research that backs that up, that it is a genetic trait. Whereas empath is seen usually when people talk about it through more of kind of a spiritual lens. I find that most of the women that come to me for the work that I do are both. And really anybody that's highly sensitive just has that natural ability to pick up on nuanced energy and read emotions.
Is that energy like, let's say you walk into a party, you go like, wow, these people just aren't having a good time, or is
Exactly.
it deeper than that? Um,
Can be deeper than that. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I can read a room immediately when I walk in. I know if there's been conflict going on, or, just kind of naturally, I don't even really have to think about it. But then when I'm doing work with one-on-one clients, it does go to a little bit of a deeper level. So just being able to pick up on, what's going on underneath the surface, what might not be spoken.
Gotcha. Is it when you're working with people, do you feel their emotions and like if they're sad, you get sad, if they're happy, you get happy?
I do, but I've also learned how to control that to the point where it doesn't, because if you if you don't learn how to control that, you can get really, I
Mhm.
mean, it's tough because then, you can be around somebody that's having a tough day and that can ruin your whole day. Like you absorb like a sponge their feelings. And so learning techniques and tools to be able to still read the emotions, especially for me in the work that I do, because that's really important, but to not carry them with me for the rest of the day. And
Oh.
it took me a long time to learn that.
Okay. So I know you're a life coach. You do work with people one on one, and I think you specifically look for people who are neurodivergent, who are empathic, who are highly sensitive. And what are you trying to teach them in the world when you're working with them?
So I think the main thing that I am trying to teach my clients or help them through rather is being able to look at whether it is, ADHD, whether it is being highly sensitive, being able to look at that quote unquote difference in a way to see it as something special, not as something that is, I mean, it can be a challenge, but not so, a lot of people will say, a lot of highly sensitive people will say, this is a total curse. I hate this. And I'm like, I get it. I've been there. But there's a different way to engage with it and interact with it. And really, the crux of that work is helping people to tune back in to their own inner voice. Because, especially when we're highly sensitive, we're very outward focused because we're picking up so much information from the world around us. So I see that we have these like little antennae that are just like little feeler beacons. And so teaching people how to like turn the antennae back in, to be able to check in with yourself, to be able to stand up with your needs, to be able to create a life for yourself that fits the way that you feel rather than what society expects. And so it's really about helping
Yes.
people heal their relationships with themselves and stand up for who they truly are.
Do people who are highly sensitive become the ones who are usually bullied and picked
Mhm.
on, or do they withdraw? What is it about the sensitive person that makes the rest of the world pick on them?
Oh, well, you can get a rise out of them. When
So,
when I was, when I was a kid, I was bullied really terribly in grade school, and because I was so reactive, I could cry like that. It was very easy to make me upset, and so I was an easy target. And I think that anybody who appears to be different from, especially when it comes to kids, from the other kids, is going to be a target for bullying. But it's
is
really that
the
reactivity.
for you, was it something that your family or parents helped you with, or did you overcome it yourself? Through how did you get past it?
I worked on it by myself. My mom is highly sensitive, but I don't think that she, at least not at the time that I was growing up, that she understood that or understood that about herself. And I really didn't either until I got into my early 20s. I always just thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I was weird. I felt like I didn't belong on this planet. I just felt like I was misunderstood all the time. And when I was in my early 20s, I found a book called The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine Aron, which I recommend any sensitive person reads. And she is the
Uh-huh.
one who coined the term highly sensitive person and who was the leader in the research that was able to identify it as a genetic trait, and like with the mirror neurons that I was talking about earlier. And so when I read that book, it was like, what? It was so
Uh-huh.
healing for me because I was like, okay, there's not anything wrong with me. I just have this different genetic trait. And it helped me to completely reframe the way that I looked at myself. And then that started my journey down the path of really healing my relationship with my sensitivity, to be able to say today that I am wildly proud to be highly sensitive and to be an empath.
All right, so now that we've gotten this far, and now everyone's going like, I want to be highly sensitive too. Um, I know that in your practice, you use your highly sensitive self to work with other people, and I know that you also work with magic.
Mhm.
And how does the life coach, the magic, and high sensitivity all tie together, and you help the world and you help your clients?
I love this question. So I have always been into magic. I've always just been drawn to the metaphysical, drawn to, beyond what we can see. And so when I started really reframing my relationship with my sensitivity is when I started to see it as a gift. And I, started calling it a superpower. I mean, I think it's really freaking cool that some people can like actually feel other people's emotions. Like that is magic to me. I think there's a lot of intersection between science and magic. But I have always been extremely witchy, and so these things kind of came together as I was going through my own personal healing journey. And now I see that my sensitivity and my empathic abilities allow me to really be a better energy healer, to be able to be so tuned in with my clients that I can hear beyond what's being spoken. And then for me personally, it has amplified my intuition, which is so connected to my personal magic and my ability to listen to my soul and to listen to my higher power. And so I see a direct link there. And I love that. I think that was a huge part of my healing journey as well, was finding that link and being like, no, this is part of my magic. This is my magic.
Hmm. So, are people who aren't necessarily highly sensitive or empathic and they want to be, is it something that can be taught, or do you need to have those mirror genes that you're talking about? Because
So
if they want to practice magic and maybe that this helps, how do
when
they
it
get there?
comes to being highly sensitive, because that is a genetic trait, it's not something that can be learned. It's literally the way your nervous system was born and processes the world around you. But when it comes to being empathic, that is definitely something. I think that true empaths are really born with it, but it is a skill that can be taught. It's really about being very present, very checked in with yourself, really, and just intentional about being compassionate and kind and empathetic. And so it's definitely something that people can strengthen if they feel like, oh my gosh, this sounds so cool. I don't know that I have this. I mean, everybody's naturally empathetic to a point. That's part of our human nature. And so because we all have that in our human nature, we can strengthen that part of ourselves.
Right. What kind of exercises can people do to, who aren't necessarily highly empathic, then what can they do to actually understand people who are empathic and be more empathic themselves?
Well, I think what you just said is key, because understanding people who are empathic is the first step there. To understand what it feels like, how it is to go through the world as an empath, and then the second step is it's so important to have time to be very present with yourself, to meditate, to sit in silence, to journal, because the more that you're tuned into your own self and your own emotions and your own sort of like inner voice, the more that that's going to help you be able to kind of tune into other people's. And so when you strengthen that first, then you can start practicing tuning into other people's energy. But that's
Right.
really a key point.
So when people look at empaths sometime, or they look at highly sensitive people and they say, "Oh, that person's weak. That person, would they make a good leader if they're empathic or not?"
Absolutely. In fact,
Hmm.
contrary to what a lot of people believe, highly sensitive people and empathic people are incredible leaders. We really are. Once we are in a state where we are empowered. So if you have done the work to, really love your sensitivity, know how to work with it, know how to navigate the challenges that do come along with it, we can be incredible leaders because we're so tapped in. And also, people who are empathic have a natural desire to heal, to help, to make this world a better place. It is just innate in them. And so that is something that can really help people to be motivated to be leaders, to make a powerful change in this world. And also, with leadership comes management, right? And the best kind of managers are the managers that really care about the people that they're working with and are really have their finger on the pulse of the people that they're working with, to make sure that those people are well taken care of, that everything's moving smoothly. It really actually lends itself incredibly well to a leadership role.
Who do you see in the world that you recognize from the news or movies or any place else that you go like that's an empathic person, and if I could model people after that person, that's who that empath would be?
Oh,
Anybody
so
like
many.
that?
Oh gosh, that's a tough question to pick one. There's actually a lot of really incredible sensitive people out there. I have to call out actually Alanis Morissette, and
Oh,
because she is highly sensitive and has been very outspoken about it, and was actually involved in a documentary about it. And I really love when people have a platform like that and they're willing to speak up about being different and use their platform to educate the public about that difference, and to help people who might be feeling like this is a curse and I'm weak and I'm different, and to see somebody in that powerful position to be able
mhm.
to say no, like, this, I have this is awesome, and this is how I use it to help the world, I think is really incredible.
I love the way that you take what other people would see as like a negative and you turn it into a superpower. Yeah, I kind of do that same thing with my bad memory. It's like, except being empathic, I think is better than having a bad memory. So, oh my gosh. So where do you want people to do? In other words, if you had some words of wisdom for the audience, for people who are listening, going like, "Oh my God, I am empathic." I see Leslie is watching us right now and is just loving what we're talking about. If you're speaking right to Leslie, what would you say to Leslie right now?
I would say just really do your research. Read, go on Amazon, type in highly sensitive, type in empath, read some of the books. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the most important thing for us sensitives to really thrive is to have time with ourselves, time to recharge our batteries, time to slow down and process all of our feelings. And even though we live in a society that's like, let's go, 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 and everything's very quick and right now and instant gratification, that's not good for our nervous systems. That makes us super frazzled and overwhelmed. So saying, no, I'm going to prioritize time for myself and take care of myself and stand up for who I truly am, because you are a badass.
Man, if I should just have you say that again, because I think it is so important for people to be able to stop, take care of themselves, and just look at the world around you and go, you know what? I'm part of it. I need to slow down and be part of it,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah,
And
be present and take it in, and really foster a relationship with yourself and your inner voice, because all of your power is in here.
so people can work with you directly
Mhm.
and get more from you. I think some of the best ways definitely would be for them to get to you on your website, amberrochelle.com. And I see you've got like an amazing Instagram also.
Thank you.
And of course, you're out on YouTube and Facebook. So
On all the things, and
you're
anyone
all of the cool
is,
things. Yes,
feel free to follow up with me. Come ping me on Instagram, or comment on my YouTube videos. I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions, or you know um, offer support to anyone that's really resonating with this conversation.
I love this conversation. We should just keep it going for another hour or so.
I
I
could.
really like what we're talking about. thank, thank you so much for coming on and for just telling us about empaths and making it clear that it is a superpower. And I
Thank
love
you so much for having me.
it. Thank you. And I will definitely talk to you again soon. Okay.
Sounds
Bye
good.
bye, everybody.